The content was not created specifically for me in mind, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like, oh, this book is not for me. Because there are Christian parenting books. Those are not for me. That is not the focus that I have as a parent, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go yell at the author and tell them that they're wrong. The book's not for me. It's okay. If you don't like cussing in my book, stop fucking reading them. For the love of Jesus, stop, fucking stop, because I say fuck, and I'm not going to stop saying fuck. So stop fucking reading. Thank you.
Did you say fuck less in your more recent books than in your older ones?
We changed.
We did some data. We I don't know. We might have to have a serious talk about our relationship.
Yes, we need to add some more fucks back in.
You'll have to write like unfuck your fuck, and then that one it'll just be like a parody of yourself by you.
Or fuck your unfuck.
And then you can like set records.
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Elly Blue, the vice president of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
Hey, welcome back. Long time, one of the most popular guests to the podcast of the past 7 years, Faith G. Harper, with co-author Bonnie Scott, to bring us their brand new book and one of our most controversial ever, which is really saying something because we are very good at that. You might say we specialize in being controversial, but their brand new book is Unfuck Your Parenting. Who are you and why is parenting fucked?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie. This is my cat, Thor, a licensed professional counselor in Texas. I own a practice called Mindful Kindness Counseling here in Texas. And Faith and I decided to write this book actually last time Trump was elected. We wanted to talk about what it means to raise kids who are not awful, even though the political climate and overall sort of society feels a little bit awful. And so we actually started it as a bunch of zines, and it has come through many iterations now to come out as Unfuck Your Parenting.
I want to give credit where it's due, because this is something that Bonnie was really passionate about, and she let me come along for the ride and, make inappropriate jokes and say fuck too much and stuff. But how we parent and just thinking about how we parent hasn't really been updated in recent years. And we were as Gen Xers, very ill prepared for the world that we now live in. And we're really trying to think about being a little bit more complex and fluid and understanding how hard this world is and how much it changes so quickly and so significantly, and how we can roll with that as parents. And that was something that she was incredibly passionate about. And I'm really glad that she had wanted to do this.
So a little history on this book. Is it okay to talk about this? Is this a secret? A trade secret?
History. We don't talk about it. We only acknowledge the future on this podcast.
So yours is only 6,000 years old, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So we, as you said, last time Trump was elected, 2016 was when the first talk about this book began, and we were debating whether to call it Unfuck Your Parenting or Woke Parenting. At that time, woke was like actually a pretty cool word that had not yet been co-opted.
It just means not sleeping.
Yeah, and we chose woke parenting, and this was partly because we hadn't learned the lesson yet that anything with the F word in the title sells like 10 times more than anything without that. But this was also partly because we were like, this is, so I think we decided on woke because we were like, we want the social justice angle instead of the mental health angle. And then we published that. We published the book Woke Parenting. You two worked very hard on it. And then we realized our error.
Well, we couldn't predict the future yet. We can now, but we couldn't then that the term would be co-opted. I didn't really understand it because the book was selling very well out of the gate. And then there was like,
it hit a wall.
It was like somebody dead stopped the air brakes on that puppy and nothing could budget. And then we began republishing the zines as Unfuck Your Parenting. Exact same content. As the cover designer, I would argue they had better covers, but otherwise identical content. And then it was just like, they just like upticked straight. And we were like, okay, Well,
I think
one word.
woke became a dirty word, just like Antifa has become a dirty word. Unfortunately, we still talk about that because the idea was what we were originally calling was feminist parenting, but we wanted to make sure that we were separating that out from this very white middle class level of feminism to a more intersectional lens, which is of course what woke means. And we still talk about the word and the etiology of the word and how it's been used in the book with a little bit of suck it if you don't like it. The book is still woke. um, that that part didn't change, but if that had become a barrier to the book, then okay, let's try something else. And for people that are wondering, they're like, oh, well, I own woke and it's great. There is different content in this version because we had continued the zine series, and so a lot of that stuff ended up there and there. So it is an expanded edition with the
Yeah,
new
and we
name.
also kind of like reframed it around the unfuck lens, which is like a much more focused on trauma and healing from trauma, which is another specialty of yours,
Yay.
both of yours. And
Yes,
of course,
we're so fun. We're so fun. Like, yeah, how does the world fuck you up? Let's talk about that. Do you need a juice box? Okay.
Yes, I would. Oh, I got it. Never mind. Thank you. So my parenting journey ended more than 20 years ago. I mean, I still raise other people's kids. I guess I raised other people's kids then too. But part of it is like, I've never read a parenting book as a parent because I was young. I didn't, you know. And so as a publisher, I went to the bookstore and I was absolutely floored by how many parenting books there are. There are upwards of 100,000 in-print parenting books. And let's just be frank, as we usually are in our podcast, most of them don't know what they're talking about or have a lot to offer, or really, I mean, they just kind of pontificate about how hard it is or about like what their experience was like. So Bonnie, what did you want to bring to the parenting table?
Yeah, I think when Faith and Elly and I were first talking about this book, Elly asked me that question, like, how would this book be set apart from anything else that's on the shelf? And I think what made it different was that both Faith and I were like, we just do our best, and our kids seem pretty great, but we don't have all the answers, and we welcome everyone to ask the questions. And so I think that is what sets the book apart, because yes, there's so many parenting books, and they are either do it this way, very prescriptive, or very religious, right? There's a lot of religious parenting books, and I just wanted something that could help people raise their kids to see the world not just as it is, but how it could be, right? Like the promise of feminism and the work of doing that. And so that's what I came to Faith and Elly with originally.
I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about this, and I have read some parenting books, which is funny because I've never been a parent, but I'm like interested in the topic, I guess. Partly it was like development for your book, but most parenting books seem to be about like how to get your kids to be a certain way, how to like kind of control your kids, how to like shape them and mold them and really manipulate them. Whereas like your
You're
book,
thinking of golems.
yeah, it's most parenting books, kids are golems, and they're like these like out of control little forces of chaos that you have to put into order. And
Tiger mother time. Yeah.
And your book is much more about like how to like actually, what kind of parent do you want to be, and it like allows so much more space for autonomy for the kids. And I really appreciate that, because you can't control your kids, but you can control yourself. I learned that from you too.
Yeah. And a lot of it too is it's not prescriptive in that, because we talk about like, well, I did it this way. Bonnie's like, I did it this way. But also think about your value system and how you want to be in aligned with that. Because if you value organized religion, we're not saying you're wrong. We're saying like, how do you share that message with your kids in a way that still respects the fact that they may have differences about it, or they're exploring their own world in this way and what that might mean for them. And and we talk a lot about just apologizing to your kids when you fuck up, and how are you taking care of yourself, because if the oxygen mask on yourself first, but that's a very fucking real thing that we need to be communicating. I had this conversation with a friend recently. I don't think I told this story in the book. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and tell it. If I change my mind, I'll panic and text you to cut it later. But when I was a teenager, my mom, my white mom, had tricked me into going to an appointment. She said it was for dental work, but it was a plastic surgeon. She wanted to change my nose and chin. She wanted me, I mean, what she was saying was like, well, you look like a lot like your grandmother, meaning on the native side, my Choctaw grandma. And I'm like, well, what is wrong with that? And like, and finally 16, I'm like, oh, she wants me to pass better. And I realized then at that age, and this is, you know, what I've committed myself as a parent is it's not my job to make my kid more acceptable to the world. It's my job to make the world take care of my fucking kid, and that my kid belongs, and that my kid is safe there in who they are as a people. Doesn't mean they get to be assholes, but it does mean their existence should be safe, even if it's different. And I think that's the kind of book we were looking to write.
Ooh, very good.
Yeah.
Wow. A different tone than last time for sure. So the question that I meant to ask you last time, which I realized as soon as we were done, is that you have, like, dare I say, a trademark formula that A, works, B, like in technology, they say that you either want to be like the first or the last, because then you're either like you've invented something that didn't exist before, or you've like perfected, or, you know, or not even in technology, like in publishing, even like you want to be the first or the last, because if you're the last, you have the benefit of everybody that came before, and you like consolidate all that knowledge. And then if you're the first, you've like created a weird chain of like people buzzing about something. But you have kind of like hit upon this in the Peter Workman School of Publishing, in that you write books in a way that makes all the other books on the shelf obsolete. So how do you do that?
Oh my goodness, my ego is like, did you just propose?
Sorry, I'm taken.
I'm just like, that was a really weird way to put a ring on it, but okay, thank you. Yes, I'm fabulous. I think that what we try to do is take, because we have a lot of experience in the field and all the student loan debt to back it up, and you have to understand something really fucking well to explain it simply. And there is some books that I have spent, you know, literal years of research on before I even sit down to write, for that reason. So I think maybe what you're coming to, and also I don't like bullshit. And it's interesting now when I step back into like an academic space to do academic writing, I am capable of writing without F-bombs. It's very difficult, but I can, but I can't write bullshit anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. And they're like, well, we need more. And I'm like, okay, well, what's missing? And they're like, well, nothing. You covered it well. I'm like, then the chapter's fucking done. We don't need 20 more case illustrations. We don't need that shit. I get really annoyed by books that just, I get it. I fucking get it. I don't know if that's kind of what you're noticing, that it was distilled down to the important shit that people are looking for.
Not just that, but like that you like, well, what I want you to say is that you read all of the books in print, you take the relevant sentence out of each one, and you say, as so-and-so said in such and such.
Don't worry about the rest, just this part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we got that great review. I mean, the review that like made it all make sense to me in context was the person that bought the 64-page anxiety book and then put it in a 1-foot tall stack of books and said that it contained more information than all of the other books combined. And I was like, yep, there it is in one image. And I think like you do that on all the books now.
And you two have completely pulled that off with
Yeah,
Unfuck Your
you did
Parenting.
it again.
So,
Yeah.
like, I think I had to, like, in the original Woke Parenting, I think I had to be like, hey, let's not describe everything about how to manage money. Let's save that for another book. But you managed to cram just like a huge amount of information. And I remember Bonnie put it really well. Like, this book is purportedly about how to teach your kids this stuff, but it's actually teaching the parent this stuff in a way that the parent is going to hear. I don't know. Is that one of the secret techniques of therapists that you two use all the time?
Are we allowed to reveal this?
I mean, we are experts at making people think something was their idea, but really it's because we talked about it for 3 weeks with them. And it's my favorite thing that people do when they come to therapy, like, oh my gosh, I had this idea and I tried it. And I'm like, that was my idea, but congratulations on thinking it was yours. It's Inception. I love it.
I always repeat everything 3 times in 3 different ways to the point that I just do it in everyday life, and probably irritate the shit out of people. But in all the years that I've done that with clients, only one has caught that that's what I was doing. That it was like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to do an interpretive dance. I'm going to have it on my shirt. It's going to be hanging on a wall. It's going to be in the song next to you, but I'm going to get this into your fucking head at some point. And really only one client's like, you said it 3 times. I got you the first time. And everybody else is like, oh.
And they were probably autistic.
I probably was. I mean, everybody that I work with has to be at least 2 of the 3 of queer, neurodivergent, traumatized. They're usually all 3, but they have to be at least 2. Yeah.
Well, on a more serious note, when woke parenting came out, again, like we said, we didn't think it was that radical. But then it did end up having some repercussions in Bonnie's life. #banned books. Bonnie, can you tell us the story? Do you mind?
I'm just so excited to be on the list of banned books. That's good company. Yeah, so here in my school district, I volunteer for the committee that does decisions about well, actually all things related to school health, right? So it's nutrition and it's exercise and it's safety and it is sexuality education. And I volunteer. I didn't actually specifically volunteer for the sex education committee. The person who nominated me asked me to sit on it. Like, I think you would be a good fit for this because I have years of sex education experience. I did it before for a long time. And so the people who don't like what is happening with sex education, as far as they don't think it should exist at all, proceeded to use me and the work on woke parenting to launch a pretty extensive smear campaign nationwide, like TikTok pages, and I got a lot of death threats. And when there was elections this year, a text message was sent to thousands of people with a picture of the book, a picture of my kid, and warning everyone not to vote for a person who would support a person like me being on the committee. So there was all of that. And then, yes, a lot of don't read this book and,
We probably sold a lot of copies of that book as a result.
Usually that's what happens, oddly enough. Like, it usually completely backfires, other than children's books, because they can keep them out of libraries. But with parenting books, it's not like, it's hard to make that same case, because like the general idea is that adults can like make their own choices, but then for some reason, like, we don't extend that same thinking to children, because obviously children would never read what they want to read.
Anyway, you probably were not thinking about book sales, and I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Can you talk about like how you dealt with that, or like how does somebody else deal with that if they're facing that or worried they might face that?
Yeah, I talk about this with my own therapist a lot, because the coinciding incident was that my mom had died like 2 days before the major shitstorm began. And so the person I was before my mom died would not have put up with any of this, right? Like, I would have been out swinging, fighting people, very vocal, very visible, and sort of pushing back. But I was so shocked by the loss of my mom, and then this happening a couple of days later, that I just hermited up, and I asked Elly and Faith to do a lot of the sort of online battling stuff, right? Like monitoring comments and doing all of that. And so I think I spent a lot of the next 6 months or so feeling really afraid. I think if my mom had not died, I would not have been an afraid person. Like, it would have been scary, but I would not have felt this, like, I don't want anyone to see me. I don't trust anyone. I don't know what to do. So I think if it happens to you, I hope for your sake, none of your major relatives have just died and you have the headspace to manage it. But definitely just calling in reinforcements, because it will feel like the whole internet is full of creeps and weirdos that are mean, but in fact, it is also full of creeps and weirdos who are nice and want to support you. So just call in the support and the reinforcements.
And I think too, in Bonnie's case, things were getting reported to social media powers that be, and free speech was very much protected on the end of the people that were doxing her and harassing her. The system was not working in the way that it is intended to work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And Bonnie and I are both people that actively have lawyers involved in our lives. I have 2 lawyers, one just for my practice and one whose job it is to bail me out when I can't shut my fucking mouth. It takes 2. And we are fortunate enough, like, we're not wealthy to the extent of just having lawyers on staff is no big deal, but we are able to take advantage of, legal supports and protections as need be. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Yeah. I fully expect that running my mouth will be the thing that kills me at some point, which is unfortunate, but it's really fucking dangerous. It's not just people saying, I think you're a dumb fat bitch. And I'm like, some days I agree. Okay, same team, moving on. But of people that really want to do harm and think that they're justified in doing so, when we're just saying, like, maybe talk to your kids about not being racist, maybe a little bit. Like, it seems like a very mild thing to be writing about. And it's interesting there, when you mentioned, both of y'all, of saying, Elly said you read parenting books and never been a parent. A lot of other people have, like, we've gotten a lot of feedback from teachers and stuff saying that they're also using it in the classroom. It's just, how do you interact with children to help them be competent, capable adults when they grow up? And so a lot of people that are, aunties or uncles or teachers or in some way, shape, or form around kids are looking to how I wouldn't even know how to have this conversation because this wasn't something that existed when I was a kid, kind of energy. And the book is pretty mild. It's not that radical. We talked about taking our kids to, to march on the streets and stuff, but also talked about how this is getting more scary and we're less inclined to do those things right now. We're very honest about, making the safest choices that you can in these situations because we've been threatened directly ourselves. We get it.
Yeah. One that, my own feelings about, like sex education and the way I would talk to my own kid about it are not necessarily what I prescribe for everybody's kid, right? Like, what I want is for parents to feel empowered to say, this is some factual information. These are the values that I hold around it. I want to explore the values that you hold. And so that's what I've talked about in the book. And that's what I was talking about in my, neighborhood committee too. And that was enough to have me called like a groomer, or that I was a pedo, or that someone needed to report me to my state board or turn me in for child abuse. I mean, it's just to teach a kid that they need to know the difference between flirting and harassment is not like the most mind-blowing thing I've ever said. I don't understand.
I mean, none of them have read the book. I will guarantee you that.
Yes, there's that detail. And I mean, I read it in a book once that living by your values is fundamentally the thing that makes you the most comfortable in your skin and not slowly separating yourself out. So I don't know, maybe adults could be reading this too for their own singular benefit.
I have a burning question, actually. Have any of your kids or young people in your life, are they aware that you've written parenting books? Have they read them? What do they think? Have they given you shit for it?
My kids, I don't think my kids have read it. They've read Brain. My nephew, because he wants to be a writer, has read a lot more of my stuff. But I think, I mean, and my kids are adults. They'll read it and be like, yeah, that's fucking her, all right. I mean,
They've heard it all.
Did they send
Yeah.
you hate mail?
And because everything in them is very true. Like, so we talk about like, hey, this is how I approached a conversation with my kid about somebody who uses a wheelchair for mobility. And this is what came up and this is how I handled it. And my son would just be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like that would be, he wouldn't, yeah. But he's also, he'll be the first one to be like, everyone's like, oh my God, your mom's so cool. And like, he's like, she's not, man. She's trust me, she's a hard ass. Yeah. And some of the things, like when we talk about things like sex education and stuff and being very open, is I think my kids make incredibly thoughtful choices in those domains, because those were open conversations. And I'm going to, they are adults having adult relationships, so I will refrain from going into details. But when they do talk to me about those stuff, I can see that the conversations of like, these are things that I worry about for you. These are things that I want you to think about. You're gonna be making these decisions, and they're your decisions to make. But freedom of choice isn't freedom from consequences. So think about these things, and then make your decisions from there. And I've seen a lot of benefit from having those conversations. I mean, they're still fucking dumbasses, but so is their mom, so it's okay.
What about you, Bonnie?
So my kid is currently 10. And so
Probably not reading a lot of learning books.
Yeah, I mean, she reads intense books, no kidding. But she hasn't read this one. She does know that I wrote it. There are stories in it that I asked her permission to share, right? Like some of the conversations we might have had, or some of the examples I gave. But mostly she just uses it against me at this point. If there's something we disagree about, she'll say things like, aren't you some kind of parenting expert? And I'm like, Jesus, why are you so mean to me?
This is the content I was hoping for with this
Mhm.
So weird.
Copies,
She's
right?
still young enough to be sassy. My kids have given up. They're just like, yeah, that's her. Mm-hmm.
So when y'all sent me like my boxes of books, right? She's the one that got them off the porch, and she opened the first box and she was like, "Oh my God, there's so many." I was like, okay.
Wow.
Would you like one? And she was like, no, I would not.
So like the most recent trend in parenting books was basically like what I would call like zero tolerance, like strict parenting was basically like there's no way your kids are going to get into a good college if you give them any choice or agency in their own lives. But so like, do you see parenting like diverting from that? Or I guess any like hardline trend causes like pushback.
Well, and then there's also the other end of it of gentle parenting, which gets made fun of a lot. I mean, of course, the thing about gentle parenting is it's really, you have to be on game all the time to have that level of consistency, which is really hard to do in this day and age. And I think our book leans in more than that direction. But I don't think my kids, and I'm guessing Bonnie's, do not consider us gentle parents. Because like I have to keep you alive. I've got to get you to 18, and then you have to keep yourself alive after that. So I probably was a much stricter parent than people would have expected from me.
I think Bernie would consider me to be a gentle parent.
Yeah.
For those listening to the podcast, the dog has entered the frame.
And it's harder because I have to often think of it in the terms of like what is best for the dog, not like how can this best be a gentle experience for the dog.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff in there of like, we're talking about like these motherfuckers need to know how to do laundry. Because they ain't bringing it home to your fucking house when they're grown. They need, they need to know how to be able to stand up and, and so there's a lot of stuff of preparing them for the, preparing kids for the world the very best that we can. And I mean, we do talk about too, with the extremes of it's not a book of permissiveness at all. But it's also not a hardline book. I've had a lot of people have heard me say this, and we talk about this, and managing your kids' mental health is one of the things that we run into with the strict sense is why are you trying to teach a kid to swim when they're drowning? That's the worst time to teach someone to swim. You need to pull them out of the fucking water. Guys, come on. so they're of trying to find that middle space of it's okay to have expectations for your kid. It's okay to explore your values and share them with your kid and hope that the ones that are important to you maybe instill. But you also don't be your kid's first bully. Don't have expectations that are just, Bonnie and I, do a lot of work with the school systems in general and helping families advocate for their kids with, 504 plans and accommodations and stuff. And that's a recurring theme of like this the kid needs the tools. Right. And they can't do it without it. And so I think that people that are thinking that it's going to be very hard lined or very permissive are going to be surprised to say, like, we just want you to think about how you think. And these are things that we're noticing that as parents and as clinicians that come up over and over and over again.
If you had to come up with a name for your parenting style, what would you call it?
I'd call it mindful parenting, but
that's perfect for, we call it that. I was going to say, please don't fuck up the world. Please help it parenting.
Like, please forgive me for my mistakes and please make your own mistakes, but let's not fuck everything up too bad and let's help other people while we're at it.
Or sort of like Hail Mary parenting.
Yeah.
I think that my goal as an adult in the world, chronologically, don't laugh, chronologically an adult in the world, and Bonnie may ascribe to this as well, is I really think it's important to be what I needed when I was younger. And I live a life of being the person that I needed because there are still people that need that kind of person. Their safe person, the person that's like, bestie, I love you. I totally get why that happened, but you've got to stop that shit. We need to figure out something else. It's really hard to make good choices if you've never had a good choice. So we need to expand your range here. That kind of stuff of, there's a difference between nice and kind. I would say I'm a kind person, not a nice one.
Ooh, kind parenting.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm just
Bonnie, we're hitting all points in the name of your practice now.
I know.
But nice is it's okay, and kind is like, oh, ow, yeah, I get that, but it's okay. We can't do that again. And and there's a big difference there. Nice lets you off the hook, and it's very surface, and kind's like, I get it. Let's do better.
When I think too, a lot of my parenting is about, within reason, explaining to my kid like why I'm asking this or why we're gonna spend 3 days of Christmas break climbing out of your ADHD cavern of a closet. It's because we need A, B, and C, right? These are lessons that you need long term. And when I think about like my own raising, my mom is who I think of as teaching me about feminism. And so a lot of the things I originally believed about feminism, I got from her. But as she aged, she leaned very hard in the other direction. And I never understood because we never talked about it. And so I'm sure she had her own reasons. Fine. But I want my kid to know, like, oh, my mom changed her mind about this because of these reasons. And that makes sense for her. And these are the values I'm going to choose or whatever. But a lot of my parenting style is just about communicating.
Transparent parenting.
Well, transparenting, but
that's something else.
And being somewhat like in recognizing our own flaws in the process and like, why should I read a book that's not by experts? And I'm like, because y'all aren't. And we're like, hard agree, we're not. But we're talking about this from this place of having seen a lot, and we're also trying to muddle through. And these are just we're just coming in as fellow moms. Like we got a pot of coffee on, sit down. Do you need to cry? We got good tissues. Let's figure this out together level of how to do these things.
Teamwork parenting.
Ooh, okay. Mm-hmm.
I'll get it. I'll get it by the end of this episode.
Right. Yeah, and then we'll turn back the clock and do it before the book comes out. But so like my two tricks in parenting were,
sorry, the dog is like hacking onto the computer.
One part, like patience was basically like, and then 2-part, well, I guess 3 parts. Reasoning out where I was coming from, like being like, I am tired. We will watch a movie now and go to the park later. Mm-hmm. That is how it has to be. And also, and then like having like the conversation to be like, like this is my perspective, experience, whatever. And then where are you coming from? And I don't know where I got these things from. I was certainly not raised this way, but I don't know. So that it's like, and I think that's partly why like the frame of the book hit me well, because I was like, this is pretty much like where you're coming at it from, you're like coming at it from with a little more forethought, where you're like, how do I want the kid to end up? Whereas like I'm thinking more like, how do I make it through Monday?
That's probably a lot of parents' concerns.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It was whatever. So
I think
like
I did a lot of whenever my kid was younger, for sure, right? Like working, having a relationship, trying to raise this like 4-year-old firecracker. I think it did a lot of that. Can we just get through Monday decision making? So
So like how much, like what percentages would you say are from your experience as a professional versus your personal experience?
Well, I would say now I have some training in therapeutic, like there's something called parent-child interaction therapy where you're teaching the parent basically to be the therapist for the kid, and I'm trained in that. So I do have some training, but even as therapists, our specialty isn't parenting. And we're, we both actually do a lot of relational work and a lot of sexual intimacy work and those kinds of things. And so even a lot of the experiences are what other parents are bringing to us as part of the dynamic and the stressors of their relationship. Or I don't work with anyone younger than teens anymore. So sometimes it comes from the teens wanting to have, and I love Gen Z. They want, they're actually like, hey, I want to repair this relationship with my dad. He's coming from this great place, but he's pissing me off. Can I bring him in? We have a conversation together, kind of stuff. So I think it's coming from all of those places and the consistency of the things we go overhead. But even in our professional experiences, and I'm going to say this 3 times, of course, that's not our specialty. We're just parents who really are thinking about the world and who we want to be in it.
Well, do you have any other book projects that you are thinking about working on together or separately? Faith, I know you do.
Oh, really?
Bonnie,
You have new
what
ones?
about you?
I'm on sabbatical. I'll see you in 2030 if the planet's still here.
I'm sure there's so many things I would love to write about, especially with Faith. So y'all let me know. I don't have any ideas off the top of my head, but I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, once we coin this parenting term, we can float it as a zine.
Yes. I don't know, but like we need to think of like what else would piss them off to get you in trouble again. I think we need to just lean in.
Ooh, what about calling it real parenting? Because the implication is that other kinds are not.
Oh, that's good marketing. You really
I don't know. I think we should call it patriotic parenting because there's nothing more fucking patriotic than raising good citizens.
And believing that things can be better. Things don't have to be the way they are.
That's kind of like, that's like a general purpose sign. I think like I would fly that sign.
Patriotic parenting.
No, like things could be better. Things don't have to be the way they are.
Ooh, optimistic parenting.
It like folds into everybody's worldview.
I mean, and I understand that we're all feeling incredibly overwhelmed, and most of the people I know at this point, something Bonnie can speak to if she's noticing the same, is we're really moving into communities of care and mutual aid, and no longer trusting establishments to do what we need them to do. And so even like that kind of work has changed dramatically. That nobody feels like they're really being heard and represented, even if it's by the person that they did vote for. And so what do we do with that? And having to think about all of those things in a completely different way now.
Yeah, I mean, I had so many clients and people after the election just saying like, I don't know what to do now and I don't know where to go. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be hard, right? Call our local like LGBT homeless shelter and be like, hey, do y'all need socks? I can call 7 people and collect socks. Like, work locally, support the people that you care about, and things will get better. But yeah, we have to at this point just take care of each other.
Yeah.
Great message to wrap up on.
Mm-hmm.
Is there do you have any parting wisdom about parenting and or publishing?
Having a book is just like having a baby. It's going to be a lot of work, and someday it will be in the world, and you have to just shepherd it as best you can.
And if the book is pissing you off, I do hear that you can just put the manuscript in one of those drop boxes at the fire station, just like a baby, right?
It may not be raised by somebody else, but it is possible.
At least it'll like be passed around the firefighters' break room.
I was gonna say, like, and then Elly gets a call saying she's outside the fire station crying again. Do you want me to just send it to you?
Yeah, we have had manuscripts left on the shelves of our store in this manner before. So it was probably like an abandonment situation, I'm guessing. But in a not abandonment situation, we did receive a submission of homophobic histories of the alphabet yesterday, which I was like, this is a new innovation in general and for us.
Queer linguistics. Okay.
Yeah. It was a new one. So yeah, maybe better to have that one abandoned.
Your kid doesn't have to play with everybody else's kid.
Yeah. Good wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Good wisdom.
All right.
But they have to be kind. They don't have to play with them, but they do have to be kind.
Yes. And have we said anything unkind about the homophobic alphabet book? I guess we did call it the homophobic alphabet book.
That's just a fact. I don't know.
It might be proud of it.
Yeah, I would say they don't seem to be ashamed of that detail.
So they're not really homophobic. They're just anti-queer. They're not scared of it at all.
Well, there's a cause for being resistant to cultural assimilation. And it's not because you're afraid.
It's the anti-woke linguistics. Got it.
Classic.
Well, I'm excited that your book is out in the world in its new, slightly less controversial form. Now everyone can go back to just complaining that it has the F-bombs in it. And I hope that your situation improves, Bonnie. I hope they stop harassing you. And Faith, I hope your situation improves with those publishers harassing you to write more books. And yeah, I hope everybody improves in their relationship with their kids after reading this.
Or their kids use it against them, going like, I thought you were going to unfuck your parenting. This seems pretty fucked.
Mm-hmm. Some kind of parenting expert. Okay.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.
Finally asked Faith all the smart questions we should have asked you last time.